You're listening to the Pulled by the Root podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Heidi Marble. I am so thrilled to welcome Amy Hansen to the podcast today. Amy is a domestic adopted person. She was born in 1969. She was placed for adoption at birth. She had a very happy childhood, grew up feeling loved and cared for. Amy has been married to a wonderfully supportive husband for almost 30 years. They have 3 amazing children and a golden retriever. She has been in reunion for almost 4 years and recently came out of the fog. She wants to share her story to spread the message of adoption trauma and offer support for all parties touched by adoption. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Heidi.
Oh gosh, I'm so happy to see you. And I'm just really touched by your story, and the call and the communication that we've had has meant a lot to me. And I think, we should just start with the beginning, wherever you want to start, whatever feels comfortable to you, maybe just to build the story for people so they understand a little bit more about who you are.
Sure. So, like you said, I was born in 1969. My birth parents got pregnant, obviously, out of wedlock, and their intention throughout the pregnancy was to place me for adoption. So I, went to my adopted family. I think I was about 16 days old. And I've always known from that point that I was adopted. I never didn't know I was adopted. I don't remember having a sit down conversation, but, so I was brought into their home. I have an older brother who is also adopted, not the same birth family at all. And we kind of grew up, knowing it, and I felt like I was in a good place. And I was always told that, how lucky I was to be, adopted and given a better life. And that, my birth mom must have loved me so much to have given me up. And, I really believed that growing up. I thought I was special and chosen. And, I have always looked at adoption as being what got me where I am today. And if it wasn't for that, my life would be different, right? Do I know if it's better or not? I don't know. But it's definitely different. And I, honestly, I feel like I was an advocate for adoption because I have, people in my life who have adopted children. And I was the one saying the same exact thing, like, oh my gosh, these kids are so lucky. They're so lucky that they have been, placed. And once I'm jumping all over, but once I decided that I wanted to know more about my, background and where I came from, I said to my husband, I want to do, Ancestry. And he was so funny because he said, are you sure you're ready for that? And I was like, well, of course I'm ready. Of course. How would I not be ready to find out, am I English?
What could possibly
German?
go wrong?
100%. And so I wound up doing that. And when I got I don't know if you've done any of the DNA, but you get your email saying your results are in. And I was like, I'm so excited. And I logged into my computer and I didn't even go to matches. That wasn't even my first thought that I would match with someone I was related to. I just wanted to know where my roots were from, where my family's from, and I read over in every little detail it gave me. And I was so excited and it was just amazing. And then I was like, what's DNA matches? So I clicked on DNA matches and it was a username. So it wasn't the name of the person, but it was my birth father who matched. And I was like, this person is your father. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was the most insane thing that ever hit me. So that was really exciting and crazy. And I called my husband, I think immediately. He was on his way to work. It was early. It was winter break. So I was off for, the holidays. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And, I'm like, I'm going to reach out because, I'm on some Facebook groups and they're like, well, just go with it. You just kind of go very generic, right?
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Don't give too many details. So I did, and I got nothing back. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just hang tight. So I started doing more research. And I mean, the good thing is that he was a match of mine, and I knew it was paternal. So then you can sort who matches him. So I knew who was paternal and who was maternal. And there wasn't many paternal matches, but there were a lot of maternal matches. And the first woman I reached out to was a very close first cousin, and she was adopted. So here we were.
What?
She's like, I'd love to help you, but I probably know nothing more than you do. So we kind of, just went back and forth a little bit. And I found another close cousin, and she had an established family tree. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember my non-identifying information. I have like a little paper that says, very basic facts. And the one thing that was on there was my maternal grandfather was the oldest of 7. And so I reached out to this woman and I said, I'm looking for, I kind of gave the details, an approximate age, because I didn't, I kind of had an idea of how old they were. She got back to me right away and she goes, I think this is your mom. And I was like, oh my gosh. So of course, from that point, I knew my grandfather's name, searched him through Ancestry, found his death certificate, which then had my mother's married name on it. And then we went to Facebook.
Oh my goodness.
And there we have it. We found her. And I went through Facebook Messenger, very, generic. And then I got nothing. And I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm getting tired of waiting. It's been a couple of weeks now. And I just kind of jumped in there saying, this is my birthday. I think you're my birth mom, blah, 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 blah. And she finally saw it about a week later and she replied to me. And she said she was shocked and amazed and delighted that I had reached her. And that was like, you meet and you're just like, I can't believe someone wants to meet me. She's like, here's my number, call me. And so I called her that night, of course, right away. And my family's going crazy. They're all at home and they want to like listen in. And I was like, no. So we talked and, she gave me not a ton of information, because I think it was a really hard time for her and she doesn't remember a lot around like the birth and stuff, which I get because I think when we had, I had my children, right? That was joyful. Like we were anticipating the moment where for her, it was like, you're not keeping this baby and you're going to move on. So yeah, why would you remember the details? But, so we've developed a pretty good close relationship, which has been really great. And so that was in 2018, like beginning of the year. So it's been, it'll almost be 4 years. And then just like about a year ago, I kept having this sadness and like feelings of like, how can I be so sad right now when things are so good? Right. And I guess that's coming out of the fog.
Oh, the joy of it. Yeah.
The joy of that. So, I think similar to what I've heard you say is that with my adopted mom, she had always said, I just want to help you, right? My whole life. If you ever want to look, you can look and I would help. So when I told her all this was happening, she was excited for me, and the day though I went to meet my birth mom, I did not invite her to come because I was like, this is me. Like, I can't be worried about if I'm going to hurt someone's feelings by my reactions. And I didn't want to have that. And so the meeting with my birth mom went great. I met my half sister who lives 45 minutes away from me. And I met her husband and my birth mom's husband and my husband came and I was so excited. I got home and I called my mom and the first thing she said was, but I told you I wanted to meet her. And I was like, it wasn't about you. And so, and she's like, I know, but I told you I wanted to be there. And I was like, it's not about you. And so from that point forward, we struggle. We really struggle with the balancing of me, wanting to not hurt her feelings, and to me finding out what I need to know and like getting the love that I want from a biological family. So, and I don't know why the fog just started lifting, but it certainly did. So,
Amy, thank you for sharing all of that. And it's so interesting because you hear so many people's process coming out of denial, which, there's a lot of controversy around the term out of the fog, but I still like it. And for me, it feels right. It's like there's this blurriness and suddenly there's clarity, and being in touch with that, and then having to ride that all too familiar fence that adopted people have to ride. Guilt and shame. And what has that created for you as far as internally? I know you said that you were sad, but like for me, I started to become angry and resentful.
Yes.
And how are you piecing all that together? Because this is really new for you. Are you all over the place, or?
I am all over the place. I have a therapist that is a wonderful woman who can really help me understand everything. But like when I told my husband that I wanted to do your podcast after we talked, and he has listened to a lot of them, and he's like, are you really sure? And I said, the one thing that I feel growing up, right, is I wasn't my true self. Like I hid behind a lot. And I'm still doing that now because I'm so sad and people don't know. I go to work and people think I'm happy and things are great. I have a great family. I've met my biological mother. Like I've gotten so much information I never had, but then I'm hiding it because it almost feels like, how do you have this really deep sadness when things are so good from the outside for other people? Even talking to my husband, sometimes it's so hard for me because I feel like what I'm saying doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. But I'm learning that I'm not alone. I'm learning that this is a normal thing. Like our loss that we had is like so deep, and something, I don't know what lifted, but it did. And it's all coming to a front right now for me. So I think having your podcast, reading books, just reaching out to having other adoptees, which I never really thought was a big deal in a way, right? To just be able to acknowledge, I guess, and validate the feelings that you have is so important because, as children, even if I had these feelings, like I don't know if I had these feelings, but I start looking back and I think of some of the maybe anxiety or some of the like moments of like I would, get upset or yell or scream, like so not matching the situation. My kids were always like, you were always so crazy when we'd have people over. You were like, what? Everything had to be perfect and everything. And I look back and I think that probably has something to do with me trying to be the good adopted kid, the one who didn't want to like make anyone angry, that I still have that same kind of thing going on. So
yeah, you got me going there. That was really important point that you made, multiple points, actually. I believe that our community is that space where we can truly be ourselves, and it feels incredible and almost frightening sometimes because as we begin to speak our truth, that's not something we're really familiar with. And we're used to modifying everything so that we aren't hurt more. And so it's very freeing when you can tell the full breadth of your story, Amy. And it's such a brave act for you to come on and do that. And I believe a healing act, not only for yourself, but for others who are listening, because we can so deeply relate to each other on so many of these subjects. And I think, just to go to the cleaning thing, like that is me as well. And so many people, everything has to be extra because we don't believe we're worthy at our core. So it has to be extra. You know, if I have people over for lasagna, there's 3 different types. Nobody needs 3 types. They just need one. But it's almost like this insurance policy that we are trying to create for ourselves. But what ends up happening, at least in my case, and it sounds like you can relate, is that sadness is there and the exhaustion from having to try so hard.
Right.
And that is, I think I want for all adopted people, and I think you want the same, just for it to be okay to be you.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, just recently, I have a dear friend from high school, right? She knows me in and out. And I haven't told her any of this until just last week. I told her. Well, my husband did. He's like, do you want me to tell her so you can talk to her? Because I think she'd be great for you. And I was like, okay. And we work together too. So she comes to my office because we were supposed to do something, I think. I'm like, I can't, I've got whatever. And she's like, are you sick? Is someone in your family sick? She was so worried with like what I was telling her. I was like, no, everything's okay. It is fine. And so my husband talked to her, and then I went over to her house to talk. And then the next day at work, she came over and she was, you know, she validated everything for me. She goes, I'll never know what you're going through. She said, and she's a breast cancer survivor too. And she said, you know, I went through that depression and that sadness of like, why me? Why this? She goes, but that was a moment of my life. She goes, you've been saying this for your whole life. She goes, I can't even fathom how hard that is for you. And I was just like, that's why I needed to talk to her, because she could like say that, you know, I mean, I've known her since I was like 15 years old, you know, and she's seen me, she knows my family. And so I think she was very surprised that I was going through that, because she kept saying, you've always said you never wanted to know, or you didn't care. And I was like, I didn't. I go, I don't know what's going on now, but you know, it's kind of one of those things. And I never put it into perspective, because I was like, I wouldn't want to be sick the way she was and what she had to go through with her family and being a mom. Like, that's so hard. You know, you have kids. She's like, but that was a moment in my time, in my life. And I'm past that. You are dealing with this in your 50, you know, for 52 years. And I was like, wow, that really kind of hit home.
Well, and I think for me, that's, it's as hard as it is to have these conversations. What a gift you received in her understanding.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
yes.
so glad that happened, because so often we speak and somebody will come back at us with, you should be grateful, you know.
Right.
And
or
for
you
her
know
to
now.
But for her to really see you and hear you, Amy, that's just precious. And I encourage everyone out there to do the same. We need to do that for each other. That is absolutely beautiful. So today, in this moment, where are you at with the process of healing? You said you're seeking therapy. Mm-hmm. How is this coming into your life at this moment? Are you having trouble sleeping, eating? Are you feeling distracted? Like, just shape it for us a little bit, because I think a lot of people that are new to coming out of denial, it is such a wild ride.
Yes. So I think, like, I try to go back to like when I really think I started feeling this way, because honestly, I was on a Facebook group where someone brought up the primal wound, and I was like, I'm going to get that book. And I got it and I started reading it. I was like, no, this isn't me. Like, that was like, no, I totally can't relate to this. And of course, now since the summer, it's like reading that book. I have her next book, and it's like I can't even get through the book because I like have to like reread and regroup. So, but I think the way it started maybe was just, I don't know if it was more of just like anger that I had, or like sadness that I would just overcome me, you know, especially, you know, with my birth mom, like we'll text, you know, pretty much daily and stuff. And then it became where I was like, if she didn't text me back, I started feeling really sad. Like, what did I do wrong? Right. So then I think that kind of just, and it never was anything. It was just, we have lives and we're busy. I don't expect a text from my son every single day who lives out of state. I'll accept a once a week check-in sometimes.
Exactly.
But, and so I would start thinking of things, and I would just get teary-eyed, like sadness, just like I would cry, for no reason, it seemed like. And, I've had a lot of that lately, a lot of ups and downs still. I think more so now than when it first hit me. I think I just maybe go deeper and think, like, look back, and I think that's probably why. Like, my adoption probably is one of the reasons why, so it's kind of just being able to put a reason behind something now. And then I get angry about it because I'm thinking, why would my parents or my family members not ask me how I'm feeling? Right?
It's so heartbreaking when you think about it. Yesterday we were somewhere and I saw this little tiny newborn baby. And honestly, Amy, it just freaked me out because it just brought me to that moment with all of us where we were that little tiny, precious baby put into this turmoil.
Right.
And to just think about that, it's very hard. So when you're going back, it makes sense to me that all of us have to go through the process of anger and grief and sadness and things that have been so suppressed and so pushed down. I mean, a lot of adopted people are even in more denial than, it's unbelievable how we've been conditioned so deeply. So I think when reality strikes, it is like an earthquake of the soul. There's no doubt about it. Yeah,
totally. So. Because also, like, when I did reach out to my birth father too. And I mean, the letter was like, I'm so grateful for what you've done for me. And I'm like, I don't think I am anymore. Like
can I change that?
Like, choices had to be made, and I get it. And the choices were made for a reason at that time. That was the best reason, that their choice they could make, which is fine. And I'm here and my life is good. But to have so much, like, just not given to you, like, I'm from Indiana. So I was able to, when they opened records, get my original birth certificate and get like all, my whatever, all the adopted things, the intake forms, the hospital. And, to like go and sit there and read those things, like, so many people take that for granted. Like, I showed my husband, I'm like, this is my birth certificate. And then here's my original birth certificate. Like, it's just it just blows my mind that we're not given that very basic information that everyone takes for granted.
It's so true, Amy. It's very hard to accept these truths. I was looking at something the other day too. It was talking about, it's almost like we're in the witness protection program where everything has been erased and we become someone else.
Right.
And if you think about the gravity of that, and I think that the system has created this space where I don't think adopted parents go into it thinking that's what they're doing. And I certainly don't think the birth mothers, the original mothers that are giving their children everyone thinks they're doing something good, but the truth is the truth. And when you look at it on paper and you start to break it down, it is highly upsetting to think about the reality. And when you look at your own documents, what a moment that has to be of affirmation and also just shock to the system that, wow, this is the evidence of what happened. Just amazing. Just amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about your adopted family, just because that is such a painful thing for so many people. You're still living that, it sounds like. And what is your hope for that relationship? And where are you at with it right now? If you don't mind sharing, I know that's personal, but I think it would be helpful
Sure.
to people.
Yeah. So I also have a younger sister too, who is biologically my mom and dad's. So she is 9 years younger than me, obviously a whoops baby, right? They never thought they could have children and then they did. So her and I are very close. We talk a lot, we're in each other's lives. We don't live close together, but, we check in on each other regularly. My adopted father passed away. I'm trying to think, is it 3 years? 3 years next month. So he knew that I had met everybody and he was good with that. My parents were divorced. Sorry. So he was good with it. He liked the fact that I was able to, meet. But then my adopted mom, she, I don't know what it is. I tell her, I don't need a mom. I don't need another mommy. Like, I'm a grown woman. I just want to have a connection. And she struggles a lot. We had a graduation party for my youngest daughter. And so my birth family came, my adopted family was there, and my birth mom's husband was talking to my adopted mom, and my mom was just, curious, like, oh, okay, so where are your daughters from? And he's like, well, we have 4 daughters, 2 in Chicago and 1 here and 1 there. And she goes, 2 in Chicago? And he goes, yeah, Amy. And she left outside and told my sister she wanted to leave because she could not believe that they were calling me their daughter. And I was like, but I am. Like, you adopted me knowing that someone else gave birth to me. Like, I can be 2 people's daughters. And she got so upset, she left the party. And so it's, that's kind of where we're at still in a way. I can't tell her, if I go visit or if they come and visit me, without her whole tone. She'll be like, so who did you go with? Did anyone go with you? And I'll say, and she'll go, oh, the whole tone just changes. And I'm like, you're my mom. Like, you should want to share in my joys, in my sadness. And I just feel like I don't get the support and that, motherly love that I guess we're always looking for from her to be supportive in this. And it's really hard. I mean, it's very hard right now.
It's so hard, Amy. And I'm going to put you on the spot here because I think this is a really powerful moment. If she was sitting in front of you right now, mm-hmm. your adopted mom, what would you want her to know? Like, from the deepest part of you?
I just want her to know that I deserve to know where I come from and that she gave me a great life and I want her in my life, but I also need to know where I come from, and that by her not understanding for all those years that was kept from me, and that it's not just okay now that I know, that it's going to be really hard for us to continue, a relationship, because you want to share things with people in your life, right? The special people in your life, you want to share the special moments with, and I can't with her right now. So,
Amy, I just want to hug you. Thank you for saying that. And I think I would love it if we could just do the same thing with you as a baby. What would you say to that little tiny baby that had to be so strong?
I mean, I think about it now so much, like this baby coming into this world and just being taken away from every single thing sense that they have known for how long. And that, I feel like I was a brave child. Like, I had to, push through. But I really wish someone would have said to me, I bet you're missing your mom. And it's okay. It's okay to be sad.
Thank you for that. And then one more, and I'll try to get a joke in here or something to help. Your birth mom, in that moment where she was releasing you, what would you say to her? Like,
gosh, you know what? I think about that a lot, and I think I would just hug her. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine. After I had my kids, I never wanted to put them down. I had people who would come over and be like, "Can I hold the baby?" And I was like, "I don't want you holding the baby. I want the baby." I can't imagine what she went through. Because it was her choice. She wasn't like a teenager, but her parents gave her no choice. They said, you are going to do this and you're going to forget about it. And you're going to move on with your life. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, Amy, thank you for doing that, because we didn't get those moments usually to say what we want to say to ourselves and to the other parties involved. And I think that we should open this up now to all of the beautiful adopted people who are listening to you right now around the world, who are hurting, who are struggling, who are finding, who are seeking. What from the deepest part of you would you like to share with them? Because one of the reasons you're being so brave is so that you can, hopefully help, and you will, and you are.
Yeah. I honestly think that as hard as it is right now for people who are coming out of the fog, is that as adoptees, I think we did put a wall in front of us. And I don't think we were true to ourselves, and we weren't showing our true person. I think that when you start to come out of the fog, you need to talk about it, because holding it in is kind of just exactly what you did for all those years as being a child, was to hide behind it and talk to other people who can understand, or at least acknowledge that you are suffering and that you do have pain, and help you validate it. Because honestly, that was the hardest thing, trying to talk to people who were not adopted. We're like, but think about people who go to like 5 foster homes. I'm like, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. It doesn't relate, So it's like you almost just need someone who can hear you and validate your feelings that you're having, and know that you're not alone. I really did. I thought I was so alone in this whole thing, that only people who were coming out of the fog were like angry at like adoption and angry at their situation. There's parts of me that get angry, but I wouldn't say I'm angry about adoption. I'm just angry about not being able to know where I came from. Like and that things were hidden from me, and that there were, secrets that weren't given to me. And that's what I'm angry about. But the situation of adoption for me, I had a good, loving home. I have a great family now. That wouldn't have been that way if things were different, So trying to look at the positive outcomes of it all. But I really think there's so much work that needs to be done in just educating adopted families and helping. I mean, there's so much we have to do.
There's so much, Amy. And I think sharing your story is so important, because it adds volume and noise and disruption to what people think. And, just like your friend who had that moment with you of realization that, oh my gosh, she could see you and hear you and validate you. Yeah. So important. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that's really important to you that you want to tell people before we end the interview?
Well, I'm sure there's people too who are not adopted who listen, which I know. One story, I have a coworker who just gave birth in September prematurely to 2 to identical twin boys. Okay. So they were in the NICU, still are, they're doing great. She told me the time that she was able to hold them both together for the first time, put them on her chest, their heart rate stabilized, their breathing stabilized, and their temperature stabilized. And I was like, so now for all those people who don't think that that bond with their mom is strong, she sat there for 2.5 hours with these boys that just were completely in a normal, great zone for all of those measures that they were doing. So, you know, a lot of people think babies don't remember, babies don't know. They do. And it affects us.
They do.
So,
Sorry, I'm trying to compose myself. Yeah, I just think that people really need to understand the severance and the separation and the consequences, and that it lives deep inside of us, even if we're not seeing it. Right. And that compassion and that our community is a place to go and to be safe and to be heard. And I'm just so grateful for our time together, Amy, and for your honesty and your bravery as you're living this. And I just hope you'll come back and we can talk more about your healing and your progress. And, I just, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, Heidi. This is really very special to be able to do this.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.